Hi, everybody. We wanted to come and chat with you a little bit today. We have talked several times about to DIY or not to DIY. And we were kind of talking about it, and we're afraid that maybe we were confusing you guys a little bit because we seem to be talking about things from two opposite perspectives, and we're really not. So we wanted to clarify kind of how we make those decisions and how we kind of recommend that you make those decisions, whether or not, because we're both big DIY people. So when we talk about hiring, generally it's because we've come to that decision, dragging our feet and screaming. But we've realized that it's better. So we do recommend that you consider it. So
it depends on where you're at in the process.
right.
And, one of the most vital things to know in making any kind of business decision is where you're at in the process.
Mm-hmm.
People are always trying to do things too early or else they're doing them too late. So, just understanding that when you're new and you're starting, you are probably bootstrapping and you are probably doing it all yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a good value, just like I know we've mentioned several times, Seneca for sure has. She always recommends in the class that you do your SEO, you do your website, you are the one that gets those things going, partly because typically when you're first getting started, you can't afford to pay someone the kind of fee that they deserve to have if they're any good at what they're doing. The other thing is you don't necessarily know they're good or that they're doing the right thing unless you are experienced at it. You don't have to get to an expert level, but you need to know enough to be able to take care of things and to jump in there if you need to, edit something on your website really quick, or clarify something or put a link or, do something quick and easy. You can hop in there and you can do it without any issue. You don't have to. So we're big fans of having control over your website. Even if you hire later on in the process, you hire a professional to do a particular aspect of that, which Seneca has done fairly recently. But she still has complete access. She doesn't have to say, oh, I need to change the price on this, 10 cents, and you have to wait for the designer to get in there. And, she can just go do it. So,
and there are designers that will not let you do that because they don't want you going in there and monkeying stuff up, which is, understandable. But, if they can't trust you, then you're not going to get anything done because, like, one of the biggest myths is that your website is going to be done or finished at any given point. And I'll tell you right now, that is so wrong.
Yeah, it is never done.
It is never.
It is live or not live. This is
yeah. There comes a point where it is good enough to kick it out there and let people view it. But
but you're always tweaking it, and that's even a lot of mine because it's been quite a few years. So I'm like, I like the design, I like the way it seems to work. But there are still things that I need to go in and double check, just like on one of my sites that I don't do very much with. I didn't realize it, but some people had tried to order some things from me, and the integration was broken, as well as my contact form. So I lost out on some income because I wasn't paying close enough attention to that site. To be honest, I didn't know anyone could find it. It's a site that, like, I do goofy things. Like I did a poster on toilet paper plants when toilet paper was in short supply a couple of years ago. So I'll do funny things just kind of like as a joke, and then I'll share the links with people. But so don't ever assume that once it's live, other people aren't going to find it either, would be the moral of that story. So pay attention to those things.
Yeah.
So,
and on the other hand, don't assume build it and they will come. You do have to market, and I recommend you do your own marketing and learn how to do that too.
Yes.
Because nobody's going to do the same. Nobody has the understanding you do.
Right. They don't understand your product, and they probably don't understand your customer as well as you do. So, at some point in time, so especially when you're beginning, then get in there and do that. Learn how the platforms work. even though they seem to change on a fairly regular basis, but at least you have a general understanding of what is happening or what should be happening. So that way, if you hire someone, you can hop in on the back on your dashboard and say, okay, that is all wrong, or hey, this looks like they really do know what they're doing. And you can gradually kind of hand over those reins as you establish trust with that person that you've hired. So because you know that they're doing a good job, because not everybody who says that they're good at Facebook ads or whatever kind of ads are. And they may be,
or anything.
right. Yeah. So
and SEO,
and they may just not be a good fit for you. Sorry, go ahead, Seneca. I talked over you.
Yeah. I said an SEO is like the biggest, hugest problem when somebody isn't doing the right things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and because you can, if they're doing shady things, I think that's one of the things where they can do active damage to you and to your reputation on the search.
Yeah, and it's very hard to repair from that.
Yeah.
If not impossible.
Yeah. So, yeah, so that's one of the, I'd be even more nervous, I think. So,
yeah,
I think, yeah,
I haven't gone there at all.
Yeah, I haven't either. So.
And I'm sure I could. At this point, I'm capable of finding the right person. I just haven't.
Yeah. Well,
and
partly you
my own work if I do it at.
Well, and that's, you're not looking at spending, because you've built it as you went along. So it's not like you have this massive site that doesn't have any SEO. You've increased it as you've gone along. And that's what I've pretty much done too. Like I learned, I need to do this. And so I'll go back in and, I'll kind of tweak things as I learn about them and as I figure things out. And so, yeah. So
I depend on direction marketing more so than SEO, because people aren't necessarily actively searching for what I have because they don't know it exists.
Yeah.
So I just have to throw it out in front of them and go, hey.
Hi.
Need this. Yeah. I'm about to save your life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, but one of the things, so when you're in the beginning stages, definitely DIY, there's no shame in that. And yeah, you're not going to do everything right, but you're not going to. And when we're talking about messing up your SEO, there are black hat strategies where you're not likely to stumble on those and do them to mess it up yourself. So we don't want to scare you that way.
Yeah, when you learn, you're going to find there's some really good information out there, and they'll tell you flat out what to stay away from usually. So.
Yeah.
It's when you hire somebody from some third world country for $50 a month. Yeah. It's going to go bad real quick.
Yeah. And that's kind of, you do get what you pay for with a lot of what the services that you buy. So, and there are risks to unethical service providers that you may not know are unethical. So if you don't know what you're looking for, like graphic design is one of those things. Fiverr is very popular. And I know Seneca's used Fiverr and she's done it well because she does it smart. I won't ever recommend Fiverr because I've seen too much stolen work on there. So
if you're going to do it, you supply the graphics so you know that you have the license. That's
you have to make sure that you have covered your own rear, partly because copyright differs in different countries. I think it's the Berne Convention that governs that kind of thing, but not all countries are in agreement with that. So most of Europe, the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and of course America, we're all have very similar views on copyright. So there are other countries that do not. So you need to be real careful because it may not be that they are being unethical. It could be, but it could just be that the copyright doesn't have any meaning where they are. So they think it's perfectly fine to copy designs, to copy and to use images illegally. So whereas, and they're not the ones, if you get caught, that are going to be fined or taken to court over that. It's going to be you, because you're the one using those illegal images. So that's,
well, and the thing with website design,
mm-hmm.
for one thing, most website designers are not marketers, so
yeah.
they don't get what the person needs to see. They're just making something pretty that appeases you. Yeah. And also, while making something pretty, they're not taking into consideration ADA, which is a real thing, not just for physical businesses, mm-hmm. but for anybody trying to do business on the internet, which says that you have to make it accessible for people with disabilities. So your designer is doing low contrast things and they're not titling images with the alt attributes correctly and all of this stuff, you're going to get sued. Or mm-hmm. very likely, because they're just crawling sites to see who they can sue.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's another thing that you just got to learn, because even if you don't mm-hmm. learn and you depend on a designer, then, you know, you're going to, at some point, put some wording up there, upload an image, and your site's going to be out of compliance just like that. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
No way around it. You got to learn. Sorry.
Yeah. So, yeah. And there isn't.
One of the things.
Go ahead.
One of the things Alice was talking about was I hired somebody to do part of my site. I had built my website and I was working off of it for I don't know how many years, same site, and it was okay. And so I got concerned about the compliance part. I knew a little bit from just educating myself, like I'm telling you to do, but I didn't really know how to fix all of the stuff associated with my site's theme. So I did hire somebody to come in and redesign my homepage and do my checkout and just make sure the theme was compliant and make sure that we have enough contrast on all the elements, all of those things. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it cost me 10 grand. So yeah, if you can learn to do this yourself, I sort of regret not taking it a little further and being a little more confident in my abilities to go forward and tackle that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you hire people that have specialized skill sets, I think especially on your website and that type of thing, it can be very expensive. So I have a friend that does that kind of thing, and every now and then I just, she quotes eye-watering amounts that people pay her to do these things because, and I mean, they're selling very, excuse me, high dollar items. So, they sell one or two things and she's paid, but or they've recouped her fee. Yeah, I mean, she gets paid either way, but whether or not so, but that's something, just like that was the point at which Seneca needed to do that. And because her site was so old, not old as in bad, but just had been there, so it was so well established, is kind of the other side of that. She didn't want to mess up any of that history that she's got and the good ranking that she has with Google and all that kind of stuff. So she was in a position where she was kind of walking a little bit of a tightrope. Whereas when you're first getting started, just like she said earlier, you're at the bottom of Google unless you're in a very interesting niche, that there just aren't very many pages, so you still might be on the bottom of those. But so as you're figuring these things out and you're changing them, it doesn't have the potential negative consequences as it can later. So,
right. Yeah, and I'll say also that I hired a full service agency. So we have a marketing person that understands traffic and conversions. We had an SEO mm-hmm. person and the web designer all working together to make sure all of this was copacetic and compliant.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that when you're ready for that, oftentimes to hire, even though it is more expensive to do it that way, but because then you're not acting as kind of the general contractor and you're trying to make sure that all things work, like they can do it and they can make sure. And then, so it's worth the lack of headache on your part So, and how many hours of time that saved you, just, letting them do their thing, was,
yeah.
And that's one of the things that we've talked about several times before, that part of that decision as you grow, like again, at the beginning, you're probably doing most of this yourself, and that's fine. It's also fine if you've got extra funds and you have a good cash base to start with, and you're ready to jump in and learn some and then hire more quickly than others. Like there's not a race. So you just need to do what's best for your business at that time. But we kind of talk a lot. We get this from Perry Marshall about like $10 an hour versus $100 an hour versus $1,000 an hour work. And I think because it's such a helpful kind of framework to look at things. So, if updating your website is $10 an hour work for you, and during that, and it's going to take you, and this is one of the things that that I talked about in I can't remember one of our videos on hiring. So I recently kind of sat down. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's only taking me a couple of hours a week to update all of my websites, but is there more profitable stuff that I can be doing in that 2-hour chunk of time? And there is. So I have, and I've already seen that that 2-hour a week, even though it doesn't sound like much, I have been able to convert that. Instead of me doing $10 an hour work, I'm doing $100 to $1,000 an hour work. So, and I'm already seeing the increase in profitability because of that, of hiring somebody that I can pay. And so my net differential on that time slot, I'm able to make, like, say I can make $100 an hour. I can pay somebody else, $15, $20 an hour or whatever. So I'm making, say, $80 to $90 an hour net, if that makes sense. So that's kind of one way to look at it. And it's not necessarily like cash in pocket directly, but I'm able to, and really, I think most of what I do during those times would be considered more $1,000 an hour work, but it's more future banking. It's, I won't see that this week or next week. Like, I will pay the person, but I owe them, several times before I'll reap the reward of that, but the reward will be much greater than what I'm paying. So, but I also have, I've got the income to do it.
If you're confused about what on earth you would possibly do that would get you $1,000 an hour, we do have a video that explains that, and you do have it in you, I assure you, even where you're at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're playing the long game here. We're not expecting that to come in a paycheck next week. So.
Right. Yeah. 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 It isn't a, I can take that to the bank. That would be really cool. But no, not so much. So
you get there, because I'm starting to get there where I see the turnaround pretty quick in some things.
Yeah.
So I need to be committed to doing those things. You would think I would, but I think I'm too comfortable.
Yeah. Well, and I think you kind of have to, we talked about that before too. You have to build in those systems so that they get done, because ironically, it seems to be the things when you get to where you are, it's the things that don't really take a ton of time that can have a big return on your investment of that time. But because they kind of seem insignificant time wise, then you forget that, okay, but there is a far greater compensation that I'm lacking. I'm missing out on. So, and not just that, like when you're thinking about if it's marketing and letting people know about your product, it's not just you missing out on income, although that's part of it, but also there are people that aren't hearing about the thing that they need that's going to help them. So, and that's one of the things that God keeps telling me about a couple projects that I keep dragging my feet. He's like, do you really believe that what you have is going to help them? And if you do, then you need to not think about it in terms of what you're going to gain. It's what are they going to gain? It's the service that you're providing them that's what's important. So, and if
Other people are always the biggest motivator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it's just for me, I'll let things slide. But if it's going to really help somebody else, then yeah, I tend to kick myself into gear a little faster.
Well, for me, it's, I consistently know that if I write an email, I can make $1,000. So you would think I would write more of them, but it feels impermanent, I guess. So I feel like I want to just go and build something big instead of using my time to go do that.
Yeah. Well, but to a certain extent, you're referring people to the big thing you've built. So, saying, oh, hey, look, I have this. Hey, look, I have these really cool things. But so hopefully that y'all found that helpful. And not that you need our permission to. Yes.
I have a plug, our business class, because we have tech workshops. We have tech workshops on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Like every other month. And that is so that you can come in and we will walk you through, but you're going to do it because I always say, if I didn't do it, I didn't learn it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get done for you, but we will hold your hand and we will walk you through it on Zoom with screen share.
Yeah.
Of different things. Like we're setting up Klaviyo for somebody tomorrow, and we've done website stuff.
Email integration. Klaviyo is a broader marketing, but it also has emails. What else? We've done other things.
We've done weird things,
so it depends on what people need. We don't, which is partly why we're struggling. We don't have a set thing that you have to stick with this. If there's a lot of people that really need website work done, then that's what we work on. So we're very responsive to the needs of the people in our class, or as responsive as we can be. So that they can.
Right now, we don't have a lot of people, so they're lucking out and we just do whatever.
Yeah. But that's, and that is one thing that's the benefit of taking a class, ours or someone else's, on a particular thing, that you've got someone, yes, you're doing it, but you're not doing it by yourself. And we're not, that's a really good, I'm glad you brought that up, Seneca, because we're not saying that you have to do it all by your lonesome all out there. So we just need you to know how to do it, so that way, like we said, you can walk through, but someone can walk you through that process. There's absolutely no shame and, benefiting from all of our mistakes or someone else's, which is the benefit of taking a class or joining a mastermind group or any of those kinds of things. So you can kind of stand on the shoulders of the people who have gone before you and learn from their mistakes. Yep. So absolutely, you can check out our class and more at the link in the description. So, and as it's coming up towards the end of the year, you might want to think about if you have extra funds and you need to have an expense, then that might be a good strategy for you moving forward. And also, if you're having a hard time just getting the momentum built to do the thing that God's put in your heart to do, then it would be our honor and our pleasure to help you see that thing grow to fruition. So.
Yeah, we have a Zoom every other week or 2 weeks a month, and it's great because it's a group thing, and so everybody has community, which is really helpful when you're in business and people around you don't get it.
Yeah. And that is huge. There's and more or less some families are not very supportive. They don't have any understanding of business and why you'd be in business, and they could be actively against being in business, for various reasons. So,
or it's fine if you're in business, but not an internet business.
Right. Yeah.
That's not a real business.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many different things that the and then the enemy will use that to get into your head and say, well, maybe you really shouldn't do this. And, it's really worth, that's so, and that isn't the case at all. The internet, is used for negative things, but, there are just fabulous things for the kingdom that's happening on the internet. So we tend to think we're some of that. So, but we'd love to have you. So we will hopefully see you in class.